Hey everybody, it's Ryan Payton, Director of the Colorado Attorney Mentoring Program, and I'm super excited today because we're changing our newsletter format to go from written to video, because why not? It's 2021 and we should be making more videos, so that's what we're doing. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about this notion of persona versus essence. And the reason why I wanted to touch on this is because in my now, 12 years of being a lawyer, I've dealt with a lot of different people who, I know at core are really great, wonderful people, but who show up in practice as not so great, wonderful people. And in the beginning of my practice, I always kind of asked, why is that? I know you're a cool person. I know that you don't want to be showing up in practice this way. And yet every time I have to interact with you, you're kind of a jerk or you are, very sarcastic, or you seem just not actually yourself. And why is that? And what's happening? And so I did a lot of research into this and did my own kind of self-help work around this because I noticed it in myself as well, especially when I was doing a lot of divorce work and in litigation, that I had this sort of persona that I would show up in court and when it was time to litigate. And I didn't like who that person was. I didn't really resonate with that person, but it seemed like that was who I had to be to get the job done, to make my clients happy, and to really step into the role of that bulldog lawyer. And so I really started diving into this issue and like, why do we do this as lawyers? Why do we feel like we have to take on these personas and show up in the world in ways that aren't really aligned with who we are? And when I was doing all of that research, what I came upon is this notion of persona and how persona is really different than essence, which is who we are at core. And so it starts like this. When we're born, our brains are sort of that tabula rasa, right? Like we're totally blank slates. And over time, life happens and we start to learn things, right? We start to learn that if we act a certain way or talk a certain way or cry a certain way or show up in the world a certain way, different things happen. For instance, if we go to school and we're really good students, we sit in the front, we answer questions and we pay attention, we get a lot of really positive feedback for doing that. Similarly, if we throw a fit and throw a tantrum and stomp around when we're little kids, we get attention for that. Sometimes it's very negative attention, but it's attention nonetheless. And so we start to build these connections and these ideas between how we show up in the world and the type of response that we get from other people, or even more importantly, the kind of response that we get in our own bodies. So what does that mean? Well, for me, at least, I'll take my good student persona. When I show up and sit in the front of the class and do my work and pay attention and get that really good feedback of, oh, Ryan, you're a great student. Oh, you're such a good learner. That makes me feel good inside, right? Like I feel like, oh, I'm getting approval. I'm people pleasing. Yay for me. And so what that does is it starts to calm down any anxiety I have about not knowing what's going on or feeling like an imposter or whatever it may be. And so we start to develop all of these connections, the connections between how other people relate to us and how we start to feel in our own bodies when we take on these different personas. And so some of these personas, though, are really socially acceptable and we reward them all the time. The good student persona being one of them. We reward folks who show up and do the right thing and pay attention, and we give them a lot of positive feedback for that. Some personas are really not socially acceptable, really negative. I think of folks who are kind of the jerks or the sarcastic Sallys, where you can't really have a conversation with them without them coming back and saying something sarcastic after every line that you say, and then everywhere in between. But because we create these learned associations over time, we start to figure out what works and what doesn't work for us to get whatever we need from the world in conjunction with that. So the good student really works to get a lot of positive feedback. If that people pleasing feels really good to you, you may fall into that good student persona to get that kind of feedback or to help quash your own anxieties. But even the not socially really acceptable persona still, can provide a positive response for us internally. So that sarcastic Sally who in every conversation is coming off as sarcastic or annoyed, usually that's some type of a protective response. And so what happens is even though the people around that person may not feel good about who they are, they feel safe. They've created their own safety by being in this shell of sarcasm. And so it is creating some type of positive response for them in their body in a way that we may not understand from outsiders. But generally speaking, everybody has personas. You can't be a human being and grow up and live in this world without at some point developing personas along the way. And you may be thinking to yourself, but what if I really am just a good student? Or what if I really am just sarcastic? Or other personas I see sometimes are the cheerleader. Have you ever been in a meeting with somebody who's just is super excited to be there and wants to get everybody on board, is cheering everybody along and just always has really positive things to say? That's a persona, even though it's really socially acceptable. And so if you start thinking about the people you interact with and how they show up in the world, or for yourself, the people or the way that you show up in the world and the way that you interact with people, you'll start to identify these personas. And like I said, you may be thinking, well, but what if that's just really who I am? That's not a persona, that's just who I am at core. Well, my question to you is it really? Of course, there are parts of us that are core parts to us. That's our essence, that place where we were born, which when we just are in the world, that's who we are at core. But for many of us, especially as adults, it's really hard to distinguish between that essence and that persona. We call personas a lot of the time like a Velcro suit or a Velcro jacket because you put them on so often and so much that you can't even tell where you end and the persona begins. It really is like Velcro stuck to you. And so when you start exploring this notion of persona, you can start to get to know who they are and how they show up in your life and begin to peel away that Velcro to start to see sort of the light between that persona and then who you are at core and at essence. Usually we say that we're in persona anytime we are using that persona to not have to feel something. And again, like that can be really hard to distinguish, especially for those socially acceptable personas like the good student or the cheerleader. I would argue that even the cheerleader is doing that to not feel something that's happening in their body, most likely probably an anxiety response. I'm so anxious about this meeting. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't want it to go poorly. But so I'm going to be a cheerleader and cheer people on and get people really excited about it. And then I will feel better. I don't have to feel anxious about how this meeting's going to go. So that person may just be at core a very bubbly, outgoing person who's very positive, and that's all wonderful. But are they stepping into that role of cheerleader to keep them from feeling so anxious or upset internally with whatever they're facing? So it's kind of a nebulous concept, but if you sit with it and play with it a little bit, it starts to make sense over time. And eventually it starts to help us better understand our own professional identities, especially for lawyers. So go back to the beginning and that litigator, right? That bulldog lawyer who had to show up in court every day. That is not who I am at core. I'm actually a very non-confrontational person, so how I fell into litigation, I'll never know. But I put on that persona of bulldog litigator because of two reasons. One, the response that it got from my clients who felt like, oh yeah, I've got that Rambo lawyer on my side, and so I'm going to win, and that's what I'm looking for. And two, it made me feel like less of an imposter, less like I didn't know what I was doing if I showed up and just was kind of, that Rambo jerk. Because if I showed up that way, at least I felt a little bit better about myself in that moment. And so I was getting both the positive feedback from my clients of, yeah, that's the kind of lawyer I want. And I was also keeping myself from having to feel so anxious about being a young lawyer, having imposter syndrome, not knowing what I was doing, but showing up at that persona helped me to feel that way. So that's a really good example for me of what a persona looks like. But for many of us, it's not actually that clear. Sometimes we just show up in the world in ways that we haven't even thought about before that are actually persona. And you can do this professionally, you can do this personally. Definitely think about your personal relationships, your spouse, your partner, because what's interesting about personas is that they find each other. And this is really, really interesting to do in your own personal relationships is if you are in persona, who are you attracting to you in the world? Probably someone else who's in a persona that needs your persona. So let's think about it this way. Let's say you have that cheerleader persona, right? I'm bubbly, I'm positive, I'm going to get the team together. Well, what does the cheerleader need? It needs somebody to cheer up. And so if you're sitting there thinking, gosh, why do I have so many people in my life or so many people around me, who need that cheering up, who need that support? Well, it may be because your cheerleader persona is drawing them to you in that way. It's called an interlock when that happens. And so for a lot of us, when we live our life in persona, we can't take that Velcro suit off. We start to attract the things and the people that our personas need to survive. So, really, what does a Rambo lawyer persona need? Other Rambo lawyers. So if you find yourself having a lot of those types of people around you, you might consider, how are you showing up in your professional world, and how is that creating, more persona interlocks for you? So things like that that's why personas are so interesting, because we can't get rid of them. We can't actually ever really take off the Velcro. We can un the Velcro a little bit, but we can't actually really ever take them off, and that's okay. So part of this work around personas and understanding your persona is not about getting rid of them. It's about making friends with them. Because if we can make friends with our personas, better understand why they're here, what they help us to do, we can actually, use them when we need them and put them away when we don't. It's really all about, how do I make friends with that persona so that I can use it to my advantage when I need it, or at least be conscious that it's there when it's there, and then put it away when I don't. And so this is where we talk about maybe even interviewing your personas. If you can identify who they are, what they are, you can go ahead and interview them, get to know them a little bit, and that'll help you to really start to understand them, and not only understand where they come from, but why they're here, what kind of protective quality they create for you. And then once you have that information, then you're in charge. The persona's not in charge, you are in charge about how they show up, when they show up, and how and when you use them in your personal or your professional life. And so to show you how this works, I'm gonna do a quick persona interview with one of my favorite personas. So hold on one second. Hi, my name is Wright the Knight, and I am one of Ryan's personas. And I've been around for a long time, and I want to introduce myself to you. Normally I would have Ryan or somebody else run through this persona interview with me, but I'm just going to do it myself, because I'm always right. That's what makes me Wright the Knight. So the first question for Wright the Knight is, what's the most important thing to you? Well, you might guess it, being right all the damn time. That is what is most important to Wright the Knight. And then the next question for Wright the Knight is, what are you most proud of? I'm most proud of making sure that Ryan looks super smart. In every meeting, in every phone call, Ryan has the right answer. He's got all the answers, and so it makes Ryan look pretty smart. The next question for Wright the Knight is, when did you make your first appearance? I think I showed up sometime around maybe, junior high, high school for Ryan, where, things got harder in school, and academics wasn't always the easiest thing. And so Ryan needed somebody to step in and be right, so that they could stop feeling so anxious about how school was going, and being called on and not having the right answer, or being unprepared. And so Wright the Knight was there to make sure that never happened. So the next question for Wright the Knight is, who did you learn your style from? Well, I don't know. I think I learned my style from a variety of people, but probably Ryan's parents, because they also enjoy having a Wright the Knight persona, and taught me everything I need to know about being right all the time. The next question for Wright the Knight is, what are you most afraid of? Well, of course, I am most afraid of looking stupid, like I don't have the answer, like I'm unprepared. I don't want that to ever happen. I never want Ryan to be caught off guard, or to have to say, I don't know, or to be wrong. And so the last question for Wright the Knight is, what do you most want? And really, I think what Ryan most wants, and what Mike the Knight most wants, is to have it be okay to make mistakes. And that's why I'm here, is ultimately to help Ryan to understand that there is space and room to make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. All right, I'm back. I hope that you enjoyed meeting my persona Right the Knight. That's a favorite one of mine to play around with. But here's the deal. The reason why I want to focus so much on personas is really because if we as lawyers are creating our professional identities around our personas, then our professional identity is really going to be that persona. It's not going to be who we are at core. And so many of our personas influence where we work, the kind of work that we do, who we associate with, the clients that we serve. And so if you are in the process of building your career, transitioning your career, and you're thinking, gosh, I just keep running into the same type of people or the same types of pain points in practice. Think about your identity as a professional, and what do you want and where are you trying to go and what are the personas that are influencing that for you? Because going back to that Rambo persona, if that's the persona we bring to the profession, that's the kind of work we're going to require, the kind of work we're going to create, the kind of clients we're going to be, that are going to be finding us, and the type of professional relationships we're going to be developing. And so thinking about how your personas are really influencing your professional pathway and your identity as a professional is so important. So I appreciate you joining me today. I hope that this was as fun for you as it was for me. And if not, I'm so sorry. But I'll put more information below about personas and persona work. And if this is ever something you want to have a deeper conversation about, I'd love to chat with you. I have a great presentation I can do for you or for your organization as well around personas. I've got a whole box of costumes everybody can put on, and we can have fun exploring our professional personas together. So thanks so much. Stay well, everybody. We'll see you next time.